In May 1940, the German army began their attack on France. It was more than just a battle of French and German tanks. It was a clash of two opposing concepts. The Germans used tanks as huge steel fists, making a push, breaching defenses, and seizing initiative. Meanwhile, the French assigned tanks to infantry regiments, creating small groups. Only some cavalry tanks had more freedom in their activities. Now we know that the German approach was better, but back then, no one really had a good understanding that tanks should not be tied up by sluggish infantry. Still, soldiers shouldn't be left with no support. That's why the Germans invented a new type of vehicle back in 1936, assault guns. Those SPGs accompanied infantry in their attacks, targeting tanks and light fortifications. For a while, even 75mm calibers were enough, but the urban combat of 1942 changed things. The Army felt an urgent need for guns capable of demolishing entire buildings in just a few shots. Even the 105mm caliber couldn't handle such a task. Next, they tried heavy howitzers with a caliber of 150mm. All they needed to make it work was a suitable chassis. The Germans only had a couple months, so they tried everything they had at hand. At first, they installed an open compartment onto the chassis of a Panzer II. Then they tried the Panzer III, but the best one was built on Model 4. The Alket company used the experience they had received and created a compartment with 100mm thick inclined armor, while Škoda adapted the howitzer to work on a ball mount. With the new defenses, this gun could even be used on the front lines, shooting over open sights. The name, however, produced quite a bit of confusion. As was often the case, it had been changed multiple times. The SPG was first named an assault howitzer, but to prevent it from being confused with the Stuch 42, it got a new name, the Sturmpanzer, or the Stupa for short. Despite numerous misconceptions, this is the first and only Sturmpanzer. Machines based on Panzers II and III never bore the name. If you think about it, how could an open-top vehicle be an assault gun? There's also another name for the Sturmpanzer, the Brümbeer. It's a nickname used exclusively by the Allies. The production of the SPGs was organized in a frugal way. Some of the machines were made from retrofitted Panzer IV tanks, while the driver's optics were taken from Porsche Tigers, when those were remade into the Ferdinand tanks. There was still a major flaw in the design, though. The weight of the new SPGs reached 28 tons, making them too heavy for the chassis. The road wheels and side clutches were falling apart on the move. Later versions had their compartments lightened and ammo reduced. Many SPGs received steel-lined wheels, but it didn't help much. The Stupas were breaking down all too often. Still, despite the flaws, the machine turned out pretty good. It had only one counterpart in its medium class, the Soviet Su-122. It was faster than the German one, but had inferior firepower and armor. And of course, we can't ignore the Sturmpanzer's big brother, the monstrous Sturmtiger. But this Wunderwaffe is a story for another time.